Well, welcome to I Change the World, and we are live. Today is Wednesday, April 15th, and I hope that you are and your loved ones are safe. And I want to thank you all for joining us in our corona-free zone. Today's show is called Creation and Innovation Amidst a Pandemic, and joining me today are my good friends and co-host from Los Angeles, Sandra Beck. My other guest, the beautiful Adriana Gavazzani. She is a brilliant attorney, law professor, multi-award winning best-selling author of the Hidden Motives trilogy, in English, I might add. And Adriana is coming to us from Brazil. Welcome. My other guest today is George Graziani, and he is chairman of GG Capital. George is an actuary from Toronto, Canada, and he created a free app titled what is it called? It's called contact tracing, right? Contact tracing.
The contact tracing app, and it's called COVID-19
There we go.
contacts.com.
There we go. And it is 40 countries that have been contacted you. It's available in Italian, French, Portuguese, English, and Spanish. Is that correct?
That's correct, as well as Russian. And,
and Russian.
Portuguese in there for Adriana.
Nice, nice.
But French and English and Spanish are definitely there as well.
That's why I said come on the show. and of course, Sandra speaks. You speak Spanish, don't you, Sandra?
A little bit of Spanish, a little bit of French, a little bit of Russian,
but none of the hard, no German. Where's
yeah, German too. Forgot about German.
I was talking
just
about for the app.
Clean your room, stop talking, and behave. That's pretty much all I know.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, first, I just want to check in around the world here. So let me just go to Adriana for a moment. What is happening? COVID-19 in Brazil. What is it like living in Brazil at the moment compared to how it was?
Hello, everybody. It's complicated living in Brazil now because we are not going through a normal COVID situation, if we can call that normal. Politicians here are using this crisis for their own behalf. So there is a huge political crisis and economical also because of their decisions. Few victims, very few indeed. So I think we are doing great by now.
So are you isolating? Are people staying at home?
Yes, governors from some states put people at home since March 20. Mm-hmm. And this is provoking a huge economic crisis in Brazil. It's been very complicated.
I think it's the same around the world, to tell you the truth. But restaurants are closed, shopping malls are closed, everything's closed?
Everything is closed, only hospitals, pharmacies, and supermarkets are open. And people who can work from home are working from home. But the huge problem in Brazil is there are lots of people that don't have a regular employment.
Yeah.
They depend on day by day working to feed.
Yeah. So the government's not giving them any assistance.
The government is trying, but the problem is Brazil doesn't have the money United States and England have to send money to people.
Gotcha.
Resources are few. People are trying their best to help, but we don't have the meaning to say stay home, don't work, because government can give you something. Government is giving 600 reais. That means $100.
Mm-hmm. For the month?
For the month? No, for the whole period.
For the whole period? Oh my goodness.
We are thinking about May 1st.
Oh wow! Is there food available in the grocery stores?
Yes. We didn't have food problems, and toilet paper is also okay.
What about lineups? Are they lining up? Are they made to stay 6 feet apart?
Yeah, they're staying apart. Everybody wears a mask. Alcohol gel, places you can go. People are a little bit desperate and panic, but there's no lack of food for the people who can buy.
For the people who have the money, they can get it.
Yeah,
Sandra, I know it's a little bit different in Los Angeles, or you're north of Los Angeles where you're living, but food is a little bit scarce.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have certain things that are difficult to find. Only this week, we're about day 28, 29 in shelter at home, and we're just starting to see bread come back into the stores where there's enough for people to be able to purchase regularly. We still see a lack of flour. We have a run on eggs. You know, eggs can be extraordinarily expensive. You know, we can pay
Wow.
anywhere from $2.99 a dozen up to $5 or $6 a dozen, depending on the store. And milk is starting to re-arrive so that we can have milk. But the staples for a long time were very difficult to find, and we relied a lot on Facebook here because the local markets and stores would post, okay, our milk is arriving at 10 a.m. And I would run over there like all the other moms. There'd be 10 of us waiting, you know, to get our gallon of milk. And, you know, I think that was really difficult, but it's starting to ease up now considerably. There's still no toilet paper, no hand sanitizer, no
Yeah.
Lysol. Those still things are very, very hard to come by.
Yeah. George and I actually are in Toronto. I'm just outside of Toronto in Cambridge. Are you in Toronto proper? You downtown? Or?
Yes, I'm sort of midtown Toronto. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I know where I am. There's no sanitizer and there's no Lysol wipes, but we do have toilet paper. I think the run on toilet paper is kind of okay now. How about in your stores?
Yeah, I think there's no sanitizer. We actually figured out a way to make our own sanitizer. We haven't had to do it yet. You can do it with bleach. And
yeah, I got that recipe too.
aloe vera. I don't think there's toilet paper anymore in the stores.
Yeah.
My brother's in New York, just outside of New York City, and so he's going through he's a different level.
My brother is too. Yeah, he lives.
They ran out of a lot of things.
Yeah.
What they're doing for bread is they're actually baking their own.
Yeah.
And, and so that's, you know, why I guess you're running out of flour. A lot of people are doing that.
Well, Sandra gave me a recipe before COVID started for bread with like 2 ingredients or something. And it was like, great. It was fantastic bread. I don't know why everybody wouldn't just make that bread. You can post that later.
I will. I'll post that because it was the bread my mom used to make. I grew up outside of Buffalo, right near the Canadian border. And, you know, we were rural. And so, you know, to be able to make some of these things, a lot of the people in Los Angeles used to laugh at me because they're like, oh, I make my own pickles, you know, all this stuff. Now I'm the hero because I taught everybody in my little town how to make bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who knew?
So, you know, people in a crisis, you know, I always say that change happens best in a crisis, and in the Chinese have 2 characters for change. One is danger, one is opportunity, and I think George and Adriana and you as well, Sandra, have taken this opportunity to create and do something for the good instead of, you know, just sit around and do nothing. So, George, you had an epiphany. I don't know what happened. You thought, oh, I can do something. For an actuary, people are like, he's an actuary, and he came up with something. I mean, I
Fair enough.
Yeah. So tell us, how did your app come about?
Well, you know, I got the idea on March 20th. So I guess that's a little over 3 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And basically I was doing what I think everybody was doing. We were isolating at home with my family, with my wife and my son, and, you know, anxiously, you know, watching the news and on TV and online and listening to the radio, and just feeling kind of powerless and being overwhelmed with things. And I just kind of had this response where, you know, I can be quite analytic at times. This is the nature of someone who's mathematical. And so that kind of kicked into gear, and I started studying, and I started looking very closely at the numbers that were coming out of Asia and some of the European countries to see which countries were doing the best job of flattening the curve. So that was kind of a mathematical distraction, if you will. It started like that. And then I thought, okay, well, now that I've got some rough idea, and everything was all new. No one had been studying this. I mean, maybe people had, but
right.
Not much. So it was all coming real time, which is very, very rare. Usually when people study things, they've got months and years to think. None of that. This is like real time stuff. And so once I got a bit of a mathematical idea of which countries were doing better, and you remember this was kind of coming in a wave.
Yeah.
Right. So it was weird. So you could, we were sort of looking out at these, that footage of places in Asia and then later in Europe and in Italy, of course. And so you had this sort of lag time. And so I thought, okay, let's make use of that. What are they doing? The countries that are doing well, first to figure, to slow the spread of the virus.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a tactical. And it turned out that there were three very simple things that the countries who were doing well were doing. One was physical distancing, which we're all doing now, keeping a border of 6 feet. The second was washing your hands often. And the third was something called contact tracing. And we hadn't heard about that. And we've obviously hearing a lot about it now. You're hearing about it on CNN and on major networks. And so it was contact tracing where I kind of had the epiphany, as you say. And I thought, listen, this is something that we can do while we're sitting here on our hands, just anxious and feeling all these strange feelings. We can actually do something. And so what I did is I contacted an old friend, Wissam Dumanji, who's someone who I worked with before, to help me put together this app. And it's called, I'll say it slowly if that's okay. It's www.covid-19contacts.com. So it's a web application. You just go there. There's no downloading. And what it does is it helps you do what's called contact tracing. And contact tracing is maintaining a list of your COVID-19 contacts. These are the people who've come within 6 feet of you.
Okay.
So for us now, it's probably just, family, the people you're living with, and maybe the odd close friend. For essential workers, that list could be a bit bigger.
Right.
Anyway, so you keep that list so that when the time comes and you get tested and it turns out you're positive for COVID-19, those people who you've kept the contact for can then be contacted really fast. And then they can be tested. They can go into a kind of a more hyper isolation to slow the spread of the virus.
Got it. What about you're at the grocery store and there's somebody within 6 feet of you? Because now it's not just the people who are traveling and you can go back and see their list, but it just could come from anywhere. It's communal now. So do you want to track those people? Is it proper to track those people? Can you ask those people for their name? Like what's etiquette, do you think?
Well, I mean, my view right now, and I should tell you, this app we developed once from the time I got the original idea to when it was launched was about 5 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Usually apps take 3 months to develop. So 5 days we put it out there. And our goal was to get something out there in people's hands that they could use in a kind of a manual way, in a secure, private way. So all the data is on their local phone, works on a laptop or on a mobile device. There's nothing in the cloud. There's nothing public. It's totally secure. So that process is a little bit cumbersome, for this, as we come out of hibernation or out of isolation.
Yeah.
So we are working right now on a version 2 that is a little bit, less manual and much more automated. But that said, my current view and position on this is that if you are in the grocery store, you want to do your best to keep that 6 foot buffer.
Right.
But if you don't, you just made a very close new friend.
Yeah.
Their fate is now aligned with yours.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just how this thing is.
Well, my son said to me, he goes, that's good, but wouldn't it be better if, your phone just automatically picks up the contact info from the people around you? But that's a privacy issue. Like that's a huge privacy issue, I would think. But interesting thought. So I just had a thought as I was sitting here and thinking, we're in Canada and maybe, I could just get a hockey stick and just hold it out. That's my 6 foot barrier. And if you come closer, I can whack you with it, because that's what Canadians do. We hit people with hockey sticks. Just kidding.
You get a penalty for hitting someone with a hockey stick.
Instigating. You're
I
just frankly
dislocated
standing
my
in line,
shoulder.
just
do a check,
instigating.
a little check. Yeah.
A little head check.
But I like the idea of innovation. I love the idea of, creating, because we have a lot of downtime. And last week, we did a show on looking inside at ourselves and doing this reset, I guess. But part of that, I think, is being, inventive and ingenious. And Adriana, are you writing? Are you writing right now?
Yes, a lot.
Do you have a new
I'm also
series?
doing some lives to entertain my friends and my readers. And I'm trying to interpret the laws that are coming day by day from our government for regular people to understand how they can defend their rights and things like that. So
Are you teaching online at the university, or is that class canceled for now?
all closed.
Okay, so like you have your series, your trilogy, the books that are out, and they're fantastic, and like they're best-selling and they're amazing. Do you want to tell the name of your books? Give us all the name of your books.
Behind the Door, Lara's Journal, and The Brilliant Game. This is
Lara's Journal and The Brilliant Game. That was the last one of the trilogy. Have you started another series?
Oh, there is a new one, Sketches of Life.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was a good one. Yeah, that's right. And Sandra, you're writing a book or two, maybe?
Yeah, a couple of them. Trying to it's like this over here. Between my kids, I have 2 kids at home, 13 and 16. And thankfully, we already go to kind of a technology-based school, so that was pretty simple. And my 87-year-old dad, who hasn't been out of the house in 40 days, because even prior to all this that was going on,
that's like biblical.
We kept him home, just because we weren't sure what's going on. So that's exciting. And then we have the 3 new additions to our home. We bought 3 55-inch television sets and put 1 in each room, because I was so tired of the TV wars. And, but it's good. I mean, you manage. And it's really not that. It's like being in a really long blizzard. Like, how growing up you'd be in a snowstorm, maybe not you, Adriana, but we would have these snowstorms, wicked snowstorms, where you'd stay in the house for 5 or 6 days and everybody was ready to kill each other. And it was true. By the 5th or 6th day, we were like, ah! But then we're now kind of in our groove around day 30 of all being, together and home and enjoying each other.
How old is your son, George?
It's
My
complicated.
son is 24.
Oh, he's 34?
24.
24. And he's at home. Was he at university or anything, or he just?
He just finished university. He's now getting involved in the film business.
Cool.
And you might know that the lighting is very professionally done here, and I think we should thank Sam for that. He's developing his skills and working on his first shows and movies, and so his life is on pause.
Yeah.
But a positive thing, I think, is that he's around. I mean, in normal circumstances, kids in their 20s often don't want to hang out with their parents, but now he doesn't really have a choice. So is he
staying in the house, or is he going out a little bit?
No, he's in the house. And we have regular, each of us takes a turn making dinner and
nice.
Just jockeying the music for the dinner. So it was my turn last night.
What did you make?
And, what did I make? I made pasta and pasta sauce, and we were playing some the soundtrack for Gomorrah, which is a show we all fell in love with, and then it's Italian, and so we'll see what's playing tonight.
We had pasta last night, but it was leftovers. Wasn't that great? But now I find myself cooking every day because, we used to go out at least 3 times a week. My kids are all grown and gone. And so it's just my husband at home. And my granddaughter called me, it was 7 a.m. My son, she calls me Ma. So, she wants to call Ma. And so we always FaceTime every day, but this morning it was 7. And so we did that. And I try to FaceTime with all the kids at least once a week. But that's life in the fast lane here, really. But, you got to stay busy, and people are saying they're bored or they're this or that. But, if you put your thinking cap on, there's lots that we can do to help other people and help ourselves, through this, and our children. Adriana, what else is going on in your home? You got your husband there?
My husband no, because his company is considered essential service.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's out the whole day. But I'm in. I have my dogs to deal with, so I'm doing a meeting with clients through Skype or through internet. The dogs bark.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't know where to be silent when they have to be silent, and I don't feel stuck in my home because I love to be at home. As lawyers, we write a lot, so
Yeah.
when I'm in my home, I'm in my office, closet in a room, writing my defenses. It's just the same with a different place. And now I really love it. What happened to courts? They are closed, but now we can talk to judges
Oh, directly. Nice.
through WhatsApp. It's fantastic. I got injunctions using my phone without having to put on a suit and going to cards. And I would like things to be kept like that.
Yeah. Makes it
fantastic.
easy. I just want to say, folks, if you're listening live, I thank you for that. And just below where you're listening, there's some little buttons. There's like a heart. You can hit hearts. But that face with the big O, looks like that, wow face. Hit the wow face, and that spreads us out across Facebook wide and far. So I appreciate if you would hit that button for us. That's wonderful. Sorry
I'm
about
gonna
that.
go hit our button. I'll do
Yeah,
that.
hit the button. Hit the wow.
Right?
Let's go wow a couple times.
So wow.
And, you know, here they've closed all the parks. They closed the dog parks. They've closed the conservation areas. There's like one little place, hidden gem, that my husband gets to take my dog to off leash. And that is, you know, it's getting very hard to walk your dogs, especially dogs that, you know, are big dogs who need to run a little bit. Do you have an animal, George?
I do. We have two dogs that we adopted in Barbados a number of years ago.
Oh, nice.
Lucky and Minnie.
Gets to take my dog to off leash. Oh, sorry, we just
it's getting
went,
very hard to walk your dog,
went.
especially dogs that, you know,
That's
big
weird.
dogs need to
I'm
run.
gonna take us
a little
down.
bit.
I don't know why we went there.
I'm having deja
You
vu.
have an animal, George?
What
I
is
do.
happening?
We have two dogs that
What's happening? Somebody has it live. Somebody has their Facebook
nice.
up working.
Lucky
Yeah,
and Minnie.
I gets to take my
I have to
dog
put-
to off leash.
Sorry.
I do.
So somebody, if you have Facebook on, you got to turn the volume on it, or just turn it off. That's fine.
Having deja vu.
Animal?
You can just
George?
hit the button
I
off.
do.
There we go. Thank you. Sorry, George. You adopted two dogs from Barbados. It was Lucky and who?
Lucky and Minnie, and
Minnie.
I walk Lucky every day. We have a secret place where we go that's open, and there's a lot of space, and it's remarkable how refreshing that is. She's a beautiful dog. And
What kind of dog is she?
Well, she's kind of a mix.
Yeah.
She's older. She's 14. She's
Nice.
deaf now, so I don't let her off leash because she likes to run away.
Yeah. She can't hear you. So,
But I
yeah.
want to say how impressed I am that that you guys are all writing. I have taken the last 2 years to start my first novel,
Nice.
and, just, you know, complete fiction novel, and I hit 300 pages, and I was on a roll, and I figured I'd be finished in a few months, and I haven't written a word since basically March 20th when I
That
had this
happens.
idea. So I'm waiting to come, you know, I'm sort of itching to get back to it, but this is just taken over as such a phenomenon.
I'm going to take an opportunity here. Hang on. I just got to take an opportunity here because 3 of the 21 authors are sitting here in this book, 750 pages. I bared my chest. And Sandra and Adriana and I are on that book, and that book is also on Audible. So yeah, we're writing. I have, I published it last March. It came out, and Sandra and I are working on a book, and Adriana, you got books. So you know what? Books are cyclical, and you write for a period, and then you stop, and then you go back.
But I think I'm going to buzz
Oh,
in
that's
right
right.
here and talk about something. You know, a lot of it though is mindset, and I have found that, you know, normally I write prolifically. I have, you know, lots of projects. I work full time, you know, and what I found when the coronavirus pandemic struck and fear kind of overtook a lot of things and took a big part of our consciousness, I had to really work diligently to change my mindset. And it reminds me of a show I did a couple weeks ago with a submarine officer. And he said when that sub was ready to dive and it made that sound like ooga, ooga, that he would put on his like underway mindset. And he wouldn't think about playing golf. He wouldn't think about all the things that were going on in the world. And I've really tried to adopt that. And I have had a lot of difficulty concentrating on what used to be very simple tasks for me. You know, I'm a programmer by trade, so these things were always easy, and I find myself making little tiny mistakes. So I'm just going to honor that it is difficult during something like this to be fully focused, to be creative, to pull those creative energies out, because there is a lot else going on. So, you know, I just think it's difficult. It's not impossible,
No.
but it's certainly a challenge for some of us more than others.
But there's people at home that aren't usually at home during the
I feel
day.
like that. For me, it's the contrary.
Yeah, you're home now. You're not at court.
I believe it's a great time to write because you have more time. The time you don't have to take your car to go to somewhere, you have time to write, to focus. So for me, it's been great. I'm really appreciating this time home. But I used to write every day anyway. So it's something I do on daily basis. I didn't change my routine for writing.
Well, and not all of us have extra time. Like, you know, I hear all these people putting up posts and talking about all this extra time. I'm like, come on over to my house, because with the kids being home, that means more dishes, more laundry, more breaking up of fights. We have a thing called the Corona punch in our house, where one brother goes while the other brother's watching TV, punches him in the arm and says Corona punch, you know, and then they run around the house like lunatics. And I think for many of us who were used to having kids in school or kids, you know, in sports after school, we have a lot of boy testosterone, teenage boys cooped up in the house, which, you know, I have to tell you, is not restful at all.
There was a guy here on the weekend. He got an $800 fine. You probably read about it, George. He took his 3 sons out rollerblading to an abandoned parking lot. There was nobody around, and a bylaw officer came and charged him $800. Like, that's a lot of. I think his kids were like all under 12. And that's a lot of boy energy there that needed to get out and get exercised. And I felt really kind of bad for him, because I think, you know, if there's nobody around, no harm, no foul.
Right. I mean, he was being responsible. Like I live on a long canyon in Los Angeles, and it's like 1.5 miles long, and people ride their horses up, people walk their dogs up. You know, it's like on Sundays, it's like the horse parade. It's really fun to just sit out and watch everybody go by. But what I've noticed is that people are going, and, you know, but they're going in where they used to go in like big groups or go like 5 horses at once. You'll see like one horse go up and then another horse go up, because like you still need to exercise your horses, you still need to exercise your dogs, and kids fall right into that.
That's right.
If you don't exercise them, they'll be killing each other by 5 o'clock.
That's right. What's your novel about, George?
Oh, well, that's a separate story. I mean, I think what I'd like to talk about is about the sense of urgency that's hit me. I mean, it's not so much that I'm not focused on the novel. It's just that this other thing has taken over. I mean, so I'm writing code, you know, and I'm writing things on social media to try to spread the word and not the virus. And so there's this incredible sense of urgency and time that we've had on this initiative, and we continue to have, because, you know, when you think about it, this virus can only exist really on human beings. Okay. So if everybody in the whole planet sat isolated for 14 days, had a buffer of 6 feet, didn't go out, this would be over, period. That's just the math of how this virus is working. I mean, it only lives on our bodies. It lives on maybe surfaces for a maximum of 4 days.
Right.
It lives on our bodies for roughly 10, let's say. So if we all sat isolated 14 days, the thing is dead, okay, period. So what we're trying to do, because that's very do, believe it or not, those 3 simple behavioral changes are difficult, right? So we basically think of this as a simple math problem. where on the one hand, you have a virus, a deadly virus that's spreading from person to person through contact, close contact. And on the other hand, you've got these very, very simple behavioral changes.
Mhm.
You know, stay 6 feet away from people, wash your hands, and have your contact
Sounds
tracing.
simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that spreading that word, that message, those behavioral changes
Hmm.
is pitted against this virus that's also spreading it basically in the same way. And so we view it as our mission, and we view it as a global mission, really, for
Yeah.
individual people just like us here and all the people watching, to spread that word faster than the virus is spreading. Spread those
Yeah.
behavioral changes. So there's an urgency. So this idea that, you know, you have a lot of time and you don't really. I mean, this is a battle. It's a battle of, and it's so unique. Never have we hit this before, because it's basically our species, human beings. There's no political borders in this.
Yeah.
The virus doesn't respect those. There's no national borders. It's human beings as a species against another species, or another, I don't know if it's a species,
Like
a
an
virus.
alien invasion. We're
Yeah,
finally all
it is an
doing that.
invasion. And
We're basically going head to head with this thing, and so our weapon are these three behavioral changes that really bring a sense of personal responsibility and just personal initiative, because everybody does better when this virus is gone.
that's right.
On an economic sense, on a political sense, there's no one who's sitting there voting for the virus to win this.
Yeah.
Right? Period. There isn't anyone.
You know, Greece is proof positive that it works, because Greece, you know, was surrounded by Italy, it was surrounded by Spain, was surrounded by all their neighbors who you know had the very worst, you know, the worst, the most contagious, the most deaths, the most whatever. But Greece, with its population, you know, have 100 deaths. That's it. Because they got it fast. They made them stay home. Their economy is, you know, killing them. But you know what? It's okay. Everybody's economy is killing them. But they don't have it. Like, they've really broken that chain. And they did it but they did it very, very quickly. Compared to per capita, compared to how many people, you know, in a million are going to get it in the States or in Canada or in any other country in the world. They managed on a similar, you know, plane to keep it down. And I think 100 is phenomenal, really.
See, and I just hope that the numbers are relevant, the numbers are accurate. I mean, you know, you look at the preponderance of tests in certain countries versus those. You look at China, who's kind of got their pants on fire, you know, these days with, you know, not being truthful in their numbers. But, you know, from somebody like me who kind of has a tech stats background, I look at it and I go, I don't know what to believe in these things, because how are we quantifying somebody who has a pre-existing condition and then they die from COVID? Well, what really caused that, you know, tipping point? I get, you know, to a certain point, how do you classify that death? Somebody who has 4 comorbidities and then 1 case of virus, all of a sudden now you're blaming the virus in its entirety. So I really am suspect of these numbers, and I'm suspect of the reporting, and I want to see, what do you classify as a death? And the people that die at home, because we know that there's a lot of home deaths. I have friends in New York who are police and fire, and they normally go on maybe 4 or 5 home deaths a month. My one friend, he's had 17, and it's what March 15th. So, you know, I wonder what are the stats really telling us, and are they just fiction?
Yes, in Brazil now, this week we have a new law about registering people in hospitals, because we don't know, we didn't have real numbers here. And now that we do a better registration of the diseases at the hospitals, we don't have so much cases of corona as we thought we did. We have more cases of dengue. There is a disease caused by a mosquito.
That's right. Dengue fever.
Dengue fever.
And so people are doing bigger in Brazil about corona, and we were one of the last countries where the virus came to.
Yeah.
And our hugest problem is the mosquito, is not corona. So now with the registration, we are having real numbers, not scandalous numbers that the press love to spread,
Right.
cause panic, and to sell newspapers and things like that. But we have few cases of corona and thousands of cases of dengue. So the numbers
Yeah.
are not
It's very-
real.
Go ahead, George.
It's very, I kind of feel with you, Sandra, that it's very difficult to know because we don't know about the testing. Like when I was looking more closely at the numbers, I mean, I've been distracted on trying to drive out this solution now. But when I was looking more closely at the numbers and the testing, it was like really, really low, like 0.5% of the population, even less, that were being tested. So really, we had no idea how pervasive the virus is in our populations because we just don't have the tests to tell us that.
Right.
So that, in conjunction with, you just look at how this thing rolled across the globe, and how people's attitudes change, even our own. I mean, my own, 2 months ago, I was looking at this a little bit and I was like, oh, it's like a flu, no big deal, just there's 30 million every year, 65,000, And then things started to change. We saw Italy. We saw what happened when a healthcare system gets overrun. We saw Spain. We're seeing, other countries. We obviously are seeing New York now.
Right.
And just look at the way governments have reacted. They start, first it's 500 people. No gatherings less than 500 people. I mean, now that seems like bizarre, right? I mean, we're sitting with 3 people. So they went from 500, then it was 250, then it was 100, and then it was 50, then it was 25.
Right.
This has been a gradual reaction to this whole notion that this is a virus that's being spread through interaction between people. And so our as our minds adjust to this new reality, the rules change and the best protocol changes. And so where we're at now, and it's difficult unless it's happening in your neighborhood, unless do you know anyone? So I know 2 people now that have been hospitalized with coronavirus. But until you have that sort of connection with someone who it's sort of something that's happening further away. It's not, maybe it's
Right.
this, maybe it's mosquitoes, but when you see whole countries shutting down,
Yeah.
I mean, it's absurd.
It is absurd.
You know,
But there's so much unknown with the
Right.
virus. And every day they learn something a little bit new with the virus. And all the people who've been asymptomatic, you'll never know if they had it or not, or if people
Well,
have
and
had it
if
or
you
not.
died, they're not testing, they're not, autopsies are not testing for COVID. So, the tests are going to the living. So, we have, I just think that we need to be judicious, for lack of a better word, with all these stats that are coming out, because the one thing, as a trained journalist, I'm always sensitive to headlines that have might, can be, maybe, could, those kind of words in headlines. They scare people, and they, but the opposite happens. Like, I get having it close to home. We had a guy in my office die. My old real estate office passed away, from coronavirus, and it's a terrible, sad, shocking thing. But at the end of the day, if you continually scare people, like I think of Corona Punch in my house, when my boys would go and do Corona Punch and yell, you'd go, because you don't want to get the Corona Punch. Now I could be on the computer drinking a cup of hot coffee. My son can punch me in the arm, yell Corona Punch. It has absolutely no reaction. So I think the psychology of all this constant, death count, death watch, it's 500, it's 1100. Well, at a point, it just becomes a statistical point. 11,000 people. How do you even wrap your head around 11,000 people dying? But it's that same pounding fear, fear, fear. At some point, I think it has an opposite effect where people start pulling back. They go, I don't want to turn on the TV. I don't want to see all this stuff because it's constantly changing. It's never accurate. They don't know. They say something like, what was that thing that everybody was drinking? A bunch of people in Iran drank all this stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
And whatever, 1,100 people died. I mean, there's got to be some responsibility in journalism today, which is why I left the field.
Yep.
You remark that journalists never give the number of deaths in percentage, just in big numbers, and they don't reduce to a percentage of how much of the world died. No, it's 50,000, but how much is 50,000 in percentage compared?
Yeah. There's a map out there that you can go on. Google has a map that shows the world, and it shows the countries and the people per million who got, who get the disease, who survived the disease, who died from the disease per country. And it's quite interesting to watch, and it's real time. It's live real time. But again, like you said, I've never been tested. Have you been tested?
I was looking at world data the other day. Like it ticks. It's like, oh, another baby born, another person died, another.
I probably will never get the test unless I get sick. So I don't know. I mean, I went to an office that had somebody who had COVID. My husband worked in a building where somebody had COVID. He's now not essential, so he's home. But who knows? I mean, we could have had it. The girl who actually brought it to the office and gave it to her husband, who was very ill, she had a stomach upset. They thought she had like food poisoning. And that was the extent of her corona. She had no idea till her husband was full blown, and they both got tested. That she had it. Now her whole office, had to be shut down and were infected. Luckily, nobody got it from her. But so the symptoms are such a wide range that you don't even know. You wouldn't even know unless they're full blown.
No, you don't know, and it goes different from country to country because Italy is very populated. Countries like Brazil are not. We have lots of distance.
Yeah.
Houses and people, and we have a hot weather. When it's very cold here, we have 5 Celsius degree negative. It's nothing.
Not that cold. Yeah.
Italy, Canada, United States. So it's hard to say. We were one of the last countries to have the virus, and I think we were prepared because the whole world was showing what was going on.
You weren't prepared at the end of this, man. Like, I don't know what people were doing.
We were lucky.
I would say, be careful, because that's kind of like, just like, I hear what you're saying, but that's kind of what we've all said along the way. Mm-hmm. I mean, a month ago, if you could look back at what was going on news and on podcasts and coming out of governments in countries that are hit hard now, that was the same message that they were giving and getting, and that message changed. I mean, the simple way to see that is the 500, 250, all the way down to basically 3 people now, or 2 people, or whatever. So. I think you're right. It's not a time to panic at all. This is a time to just be very, very sensible and have a clear grip on what we do know. And what we do know is that this thing lasts basically 14 days. It can only live, like, it's interesting. I had a conversation with my brother who's a research scientist. This is about 4 weeks ago, and he's in New York now. He's in a different mind space altogether.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But he got me thinking about the virus as having not really a thinking to it or a consciousness, but just that it's a clever thing. I mean, it's taking advantage of things we do. So, the being within 6 feet is so that our breath and the moisture from, you know, it's
Right.
actually in our lungs, right? So that's the 6 foot thing. The washing the hands is because what we do, and, you know, I've been trying not to do this, but we touch our face, right? So we touch a surface that might have the stuff on it, and we touch our face. We touch our face a lot. And so that's what the washing the hands is about. And he made me think the virus knows that. It's sort of taken that into account through the evolution, I guess, of viruses, and it's hit on something that allows it to spread well. So these are things that we kind of know, right? So we're not doing rocket science. Like when it came down to these 3 basic things, the physical distancing, the hygiene, hand washing, and the contact tracing, basically keeping track of, you know, who you were in contact with so that it doesn't move fast. They're simple. Like, you know, you don't need a PhD in nuclear physics to figure that out.
However, George, let me just ask you that, because it's the second wave that they worry about, right? We're going to clean it up. We're going to have our summer, and then it's going to hit again. Now, why is it going to hit again? Maybe, but you know, it hit again. It actually, like, if they believe it and the models show it, let's say it does. Like, what causes it to hit again? Just that we got back together, it was gone, or we thought it was, you know, leveled out, or it was whatever. So the only way to stop that is to have a cure for it, really. That's
right. And so, you know, the precedent here is the Spanish flu. Back in 1918 is the closest thing we've got. And there, when you go and dig into that a bit, you find out waves similar to this. The first wave was in the springtime of a year. Second wave was in the following fall, which was actually more severe than the first wave.
Wow.
And then there was a third wave. So, and how does that happen? This is kind of an insidious virus because, as you said, the symptoms, you might not have symptoms. There could be, we don't know what percentage of people are walking around with the virus with no symptoms. So it can sit in our population for quite a while, being, you know, kind of invisible to us that way. And we all think about this in a personal way. We think about that here. Do we all have it, or do we all not have it? And we just don't know. But so it can linger, and that's kind of the concern.
Of course it's going to linger, because you can't have every facet of the fire. You still need first responders. So always going to be circulating in there. And, you know, one of the things that I've been watching is I've been watching India lately, because, you know, if it really is as communicable person to person with the 6 foot distancing, you're going to have a hard time with that in India. You know what I mean? And so I'm looking, if these things are correct, is there going to be this massive die-off in India? Are we going to see massive, you know, funerals and mass graves? So I'm kind of interested watching, you know, to see what happens in India because of its hugely dense population. But when you look at, you know, some of these things and you look at the places where these hotspots are, you know, I think about people's shoes. You know, we always have taken our shoes off outside our house and we leave them there. But when I go to New York City, I wear my shoes right into my bedroom. I go from the subway to the stairs to everywhere. And I'm really lazy. I'm one of those people that kick their shoes off, even if they're nice, like Jimmy Choos. I like flip them off. I don't touch the bottom of my shoes. But I was watching my dad the other day, and when he goes to take his shoes off at 86 years old, he sits down, he puts his hands on his shoes, he's, you know, touching all the bottoms. And, you know, part of me wonders if the shoe thing was part of why the elderly were dying, because if you're tracking it in, we know it lives on these surfaces on the bottoms.
Oh, she froze on us.
Yes, now I'm back.
You're back. Okay. Maybe she'll be back. I don't know. Hopefully
I mean, maybe just to pick up on that point.
Yeah.
We were talking the other, you're all dog people, right? You have dogs.
Yeah, that's right.
We were sort of debating it out, and, you know, we're trying to figure it out. Can the virus get on dog fur? And my son was saying, you know, can it? Yeah, it's a surface. Sure. It can, like the saliva of someone with it, you know, if it touched. Now, how long it can last on that dog's fur, I don't know, but you know,
they said there's something about hair on the fur that it can't stay on it.
Yeah, that's the thing that's so tricky with this, because I heard
knows?
yesterday Toronto news was saying, yes, it can be. So
Oh
you
my
should
God.
social distance your dog. So
I just told my husband, don't let
moving
anybody pet him.
target.
Yeah, recommendations are you get home, you take off your clothes, your shoes, you wash your hands, you don't touch dogs or people before you wash your hands. But uh, there are a lot of people that they won't do that because they are arriving to a house that don't
How
belong
can
to
we
She
them.
back?
How they are going to take off the clothes,
That's it.
the
hear you,
shoes.
but I can't see anything?
Oh, can you hear us? You're frozen on my screen,
Yeah, you're frozen on mine too.
but she can hear us. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I have the rule that you don't wear outdoor clothes inside. That's the end of it. No outdoor clothes inside. You take them off, put your pajama bottoms on or whatever you want to do. Don't sit, sit on the couch. And I Lysol the couch down once a day, and you Lysol the remote controls, and you just do what you can to keep everything as clean as you possibly can. And I don't let strangers pet my dog now, and that's it. He doesn't care anyway, so.
Yeah, we are going to survive this. I hope so.
I think we'll survive it. I mean, last week we talked about, are people going to, when this is all over, are we going to not touch each other again? Are we going to be afraid of people still? Like, what will be pervasive in society after this? It's interesting. It's an interesting conundrum to know how will life change for us.
People
But
are going to be afraid of each other for a long time, I think.
I think so too. But I'm really glad that there's people like George who created his app for us, and that's really amazing. Tell everybody again. It was www.covid-19.com.
You almost got it. It's
Contact?
www.covid-19contacts.com.
There we go.
Simple.
All right. Yeah.
It's free. It's global. It's nonprofit. It's not commercial at all. It's private and secure. It's in 6 languages. We've had thousands of visitors from over 45 countries, and it works on laptops and mobiles. And that's one of the things that we will be using, tools like this, as we go out, and as we reintegrate with other people, and so I just encourage all of you to just take a look and take some leadership. Like, tell your friends about it.
Yeah.
Because we're in this together, really.
We are, and we always say that if we wanted humanity to come together, it needed a common enemy, and we have a common enemy at the moment, but we still aren't together in it. I feel like we're still not quite there yet, and hopefully we will be. Hi, welcome back.
I switched to my phone. Zoom froze on my computer, so
all right.
There's a way.
Yeah, of course.
I think on the contrary, people show their worst faces on this crisis. Buying food on supermarket, buying all the toilet paper in the world. Now people are doing politics using the virus. People are discussing tons of things, but they are not trying to help each other. So it's the selfishness. It's even more evident right now, I think.
I hear you on that. I was just talking about, Sandra, when you came back in, about how, it was always said that the world needed a common enemy to come together and really love one another and, against something. And COVID is a common enemy. And yet people are still, it's the Chinese virus. It's the this, it's the that. Like they're still separating. They're still, it's we're okay, so we'll just keep all of our goodies over here, and you can't have any, kind of thing, instead of, yeah, sure, I'll help you, and then quid pro, and then you can get it back. And what do you think?
Because that's human nature. It's human nature. When you look at a crisis, I think about some of the military training that I was part of, and when people are put under undue pressure, their kind of real nature, or what's in their heart, however you want to put it, comes out. So if you're a greedy person under pressure, you're going to grab as much as you can. If you're a helpful person, you're going to rise to the occasion, maybe become a leader, a servant leadership. If you're somebody who feels that they've never gotten anything, you're going to be even more bitter and angry. So, this is kind of like living the Independence Day movie, where the aliens come in and invade. And, you look at some people are selfish and they're going to become more selfish. So I don't think that it's reasonable with the human condition to expect that a pandemic or an alien invasion would cause people to change the nature of who they are at their core.
It's unfortunate.
No, I don't know if I'm as as negative on human nature as all that. To be honest, I think that to be honest, the virus doesn't care about any of that, right? It is happy to kill rich people, poor people,
Sure.
people of every race, people of every religion. It doesn't care, and we shouldn't. We need. I think that yes. There is, people do have their own ways of thinking about things, and they're not always the most positive. But that said, I think a lot of that is driven by the fact that it takes more time for people to kind of get the idea. And we need to be patient and sympathetic, because I'm sure that each of us who are now, pretty much, kind of fully involved in trying to understand this, there was a time 2 months ago or 3 months ago or 5, whatever it was, where, you weren't taking it that seriously. I wasn't taking it that seriously.
Right.
And I've got to be honest about that. I was looking at it like this is something that's happening far away.
Far away. I had 2 trips planned. Yeah, we canceled.
Take people a different amount of time to sort of, get it. And so, my thought on that would be patient, focus on what we do know, and don't kid yourself. This virus it doesn't have any politics to it or any of that. And that, that area in Italy that got first hit so hard, that wasn't a poor area. That was one of the richest areas with probably the best, medical systems that they have there. So, I think we need to be cautious. We need to be patient with other people. We need to stick to what we know about this thing and beat it.
I still think it's a really good time for creation, because that's, was the title of my show. And before I cannot let you go, George, without talking about your art, because you are a fantastic artist. Yeah. So why don't you just tell us about your art for a moment?
First of all, can I just say that someone called Picasso said that they like my art after this? Is it crazy or what? This is what a beautiful world we're in. Thank you so much.
It's fantastic.
Well, hopefully when this is over in a few months, we can talk again, and we can talk about art, and we can talk about novels.
I think it's important to talk about, the thing that makes humanity the humanities, and the arts and the sciences and the things that people are creating, because it is a really good time. People are talking about it's a reset. It's a time for reset. It's a time to go inside. It's a time for reflection, and art is always about reflection, and writing is about reflection.
Look at the beautiful art in the masks.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go on the internet and look at the amazing creativity and beautiful masks that are being created. I mean, to me, those are works of art.
Sandra's going through cancer treatments right now, and she went to her treatment and she had a mask on and she put lipstick on it. It was really cute.
I used a Sharpie. But, but the point is, right, I mean, we all get to choose how we want to show up during this pandemic. We get to choose that actually every day if people would recognize it. So how do you choose to show up in the pandemic? I choose to try to show up as being a light.
That's right. 4 lights.
For light.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, everybody. Adriana, love and kisses to you. I wish you were closer. George, it was really a pleasure to meet you.
We couldn't have any contact if I was closer.
I know. But it's nice to know that my favorite people in the world are still here, and I want you all to stay here. Make sure you do that.
Great to be with you, Frankie. Thank you.
George, so